Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining the Facebook Live event today. I have the pleasure of having Dr. Laurie Lesser, the Eye Care Director for Bailey Nelson. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Maria.
Yeah, so I've known Dr. Lesser for a while, and it's an honor to have you on the show here today. And it's great to show young female ODs that even if you're working as an employee, you can really, if you want to be a leader in the industry, you can do that. So it's exciting to have you on today, and we get some insights from you. Can you tell us about your journey and how you got to Bailey Nelson and how you got this position?
Sure. I've been an optometrist a really, really long time. And about a decade ago, I took a position with National Vision. And I became what's called an area doctor, which is sort of like middle management. You're supporting a group of doctors in an area. But I found it very interesting, and it was like nice to use a part of my brain other than the optometry side. And I did whatever I really could to sort of expand the role. So I would volunteer for everything. I would give help without being asked to give help. I had once read something along the lines of, if you want a different job, just start doing it, and hopefully someone will eventually notice and give you that job. So I probably talked to the legal department and the equipment department and different parts of that company more than the average area doctor. I started learning as much as possible. I always read the industry magazines. And a couple of years ago, I started looking, for other opportunities outside of that company, simply because a lot of times when you've been somewhere for a long time, people will start to just assume certain things about you. They'll sort of pigeonhole you, say, oh, well, they're really good in that role, but, not give you other opportunities. So I kept looking for something. And about a year and a half ago, I saw an ad for the eye care director position for North America for Bailey Nelson. And since I'm originally Canadian, the thought of moving back to Canada seemed like a good idea also. And here I am.
Yeah, and you're okay with being cold in Canada because you're like doctors that don't know you. You were practicing in Florida, and I was like, who wants to go to Canada and be free? But if you're originally from it, you kind of know it, right?
Right. And I'm originally from Ontario, which is kind of closer to you. And this job is in Vancouver, and it never really gets super cold here. It's kind of like Seattle weather.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so it's not too bad. I think people, Americans see everything in metric in Canada. And so if I say, oh, it's August and it's a beautiful 30-degree day, they're like, oh my God, that's freezing, but it's like 90. So, it's kind of funny that way, where it's not as cold as people think. I don't have
Yeah.
polar bears on my street or anything.
So you had experience within National Vision, kind of learning the admin stuff, getting your feet wet, and then you had opportunities to really like go to different companies. Tell me why you chose Bailey Nelson, how it fits. Tell me about it. Because it's getting a lot of traction in Canada. Doctors are asking for subleases. I know they're around the world in Australia and the UK. Tell us about your journey with them and why you chose them.
Right. Well, they're a very interesting company. They were founded in 2012 by two friends, Nick and Pete. They decided that glasses could be affordable and accessible to people and beautiful, because at that time in Australia, you either spent a lot of money or you got really ugly glasses, and they didn't want any part of that. They slowly started to design their own glasses, use the best material like Italian acetate, German and Japanese metals. And because of the vertical integration, they were able to pass those savings on to customers. And they went from basically selling glasses at the Bondi Beach market to opening a store. At that point, an optometrist came to them and said, hey, you guys are amazing, but if you want to become great, you have to have optometry be part of your journey. And they're really smart guys, so they actually listen to an optometrist. That's a big thing, listening to optometrists. And that really changed everything. And the eye care and eyewear journey started. And we're now in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and Canada, and we're continuing to expand rapidly. We actually doubled the amount of stores in Canada during the pandemic, which, most people were trying to just hold on, and we're like, we're going big, and we've gotten here. I think what truly makes us special, though, is that we look to hire people who embody our core values, and that's being tight knit, down to earth, and constantly improving. So you get this group of people who, might not be the person you would expect to get that super corporate job, because we see the possibility in everyone. And there's just a lot of support and nurturing. And it just becomes a really good experience. And from an optometrist standpoint, you're working in an optical that puts people first, and the staff doesn't work on commission, so you don't get like these super aggressive people out front. I've worked in opticals my whole life, and there were times where I'd bring a patient back in for dilation and I'd have to apologize, for the behavior of, some super aggressive staff member. And it's just so nice to be in an environment where it's really a team and everyone's looking out for everyone, and we're all really just looking to make sure the patients end up with the glasses that they really need from a vision standpoint, and then make them look good and feel good.
Yeah, you know what? One thing that stood out to me, and you hit the nail right on it, because I work with a lot of corporations, talk to a lot of doctors. A lot of corporate opticals don't care and don't listen to the optometrist, don't get advice, or they'll get that. And there isn't a lot sometimes leadership up there, kind of for the ODs and things like that. So I think that is a great differentiating factor. And I think just for them to kind of grow and change the industry, disrupt it, I think that's a big part. And one of the things that I noticed within the corporation of Bailey Nelson is there's a lot of females in leadership, where you don't see that in corporate optometry. And I've written articles about that in the past. And things really still haven't changed. Okay. Tell me, about that. And, it's about personality and growth, and you can grow people within an organization what they want. And it's good to have that open dialect and not be afraid to voice your opinion, and ask for change and things like that. But I think that's a huge thing is having female leadership, because a lot of the, graduating class is female. And I think we need to have that representation.
Yeah, I think it makes a really big difference. So in the Canadian UK sort of leadership team, there's 9 people and 6 of them are female. And in the support office overall, it's a majority female as well. And it wasn't like Bailey Nelson said, oh, we need to even out the number of women in our corporate headquarters. It really happened organically, because
Good.
when you have a company that really focuses on servant leadership, and you have that sort of nurturing and people coming first, I think you're always going to end up with a lot of strong female leaders, because I think that's something that women just naturally might have, a little better skill at from day one. So it just makes it a little more interesting. And because we're always looking for people who can be their authentic selves, we open up those opportunities to people who might not otherwise, get those roles. And there's, because it's a very close, tight-knit team, we have a lot of, people in different departments helping each other out. So I was thinking about our VP of finance, and she's had so many conversations with me about equipment conductivity and contact lens parameters. And I'm thinking, when she was becoming an accountant, did she ever think she'd have these kinds of conversations? So I think it expands everyone's knowledge. And it just becomes a really nice place to work. But I think you're right. I mean, over 70% of women in optometry school, and over the next 10 years, you're going to see a majority of women as optometrists. And when you look at the structure of a lot of big corporations, it's still mostly men. And that obviously needs to change. And I'm glad that Bailey Nelson is one of the companies that's doing that.
Yeah. And then what the key word or phrase you said in that was organic change. Organically, it happened, right? It's because they saw it, they found the best person. It wasn't like, hey, we need to meet a quota, we want to show change, and then we're just going to fill these positions. But the positions where females are, though, are decision-making positions where it makes a change. It's not just, oh, we're going to have this change, but maybe you're just a recruiter, or people that don't make change in the industry or within the company and make a decision for something. So I think that's important, because a lot of them will say, we did this, we do have leadership, but they're not the ones making decisions. So they're still taking direction from someone else. And it's still the same thing over and over again, and it's to support something. So I think that's super important to acknowledge here. How do you support, ODs with sublease, with BN? Because that's important. A lot of doctors will take a sublease, they'll have this honeymoon period where everything's amazing, and then all of a sudden, once they sign, it's gone, right? No support, nothing. Everyone's on their island. How do you support it, and how is it different at Bailey Nelson?
It's funny you say that. I always say that to the doctors when I'm talking to them to convince them to get subleases, that I'm very focused on not having people feel like they're working on an island by themselves. I remember working in a VisionWorks sublease when I first graduated, and I don't think I even saw my boss. Like, I think he called me and said, show up at this office, and I walked in and started seeing patients, and I never felt there was any support. If I had any problems, I didn't know who to go to. It was before things like corporate ODs on Facebook existed. I couldn't like send messages. So for me, having that support system in place is really important. So I, try to visit as many of the doctors as I can. I've been flying all over Canada this past year as soon as the restrictions were lifted, go out to dinner. We have all these WhatsApp, conversations going between all the optometrists so they can ask each other questions and share interesting cases. And this morning in Ontario, the window cleaner in front of one of our stores was dressed like the Grinch. So that's been the big post today. But it's really a nice, tight-knit community of optometrists. And I still practice. I don't practice, as much as I used to. Obviously, I have some other jobs, but because I actually work inside of Bailey Nelson as an optometrist from time to time, like today, for instance, I know what it's like to practice in this environment. And it's literally the most fun I've had as an optometrist in 30 years. So it's, 2 patients an hour. It's this team environment. It's very relaxed. Patients, are set up. We have, digital equipment, so we don't need a giant, exam chair. So a lot of times people who haven't had an exam in a long time and see that big black chair and get a little like stressed out immediately because they think of the dentist, they walk in and it's such a relaxed atmosphere. Like, I used to have anxiety about getting an eye exam, and you guys made it all so comfortable and nice. And, just supporting the doctors and making sure that they're comfortable, and really just looking for doctors who see this as their own practice and want to grow it year after year. I'm not going to, we're trying not to be that kind of company where we keep changing the rules midway and, suddenly like you've built this practice and suddenly you don't have it anymore. We want people who want this to be their career. So we do everything we can to support them. We've also made it a very turnkey practice management business. So we can do a lot of the things that a lot of doctors have to deal with. The main one being that we supply the support staff. So the pre-testing, the answering the phones, making appointments, all of that is taken care of by Bailey Nelson. And since we're so focused on hiring people who have that great personality, who, are so engaged, it takes that away because, people management is very hard. And if you have to hire someone to be your tech and, hope they show up or, make appointments or make sure they're, people who are going to be, polite and friendly to your patients, that can be the more stressful having a lease or a private practice than pretty much anything else in optometry. The eye exam part is probably the simplest part of optometry in some ways. And, we give that support, and I always make sure that everyone, feels supported as much as I can.
Yeah. You know what? One thing that I took out of that, and I'll tell you, because I'm comparing this to other corporations within corporate optometry. Okay. You work in the environment. You're in the trenches. You know the headaches. You know the staff issue, the stuff. You're not on the other end, right? You're not like so displaced that you don't know what's going on, and you're seeing it, and like, hey, I'm here all day. I got to see these patients. I know what patients ask for. And then the doctors kind of see that too, like you're involved in these things and that you're more approachable. There's some leadership that's not approachable, and doctors don't want to ask, or they hear like they had a bad experience and they don't have that support where they can't really complain if they have an issue. And I think that within a corporation, they should be open to that kind of feedback, to say, okay, we're not doing it right. Let me see what we can do better to attract more, because word gets around, right? And then so doctors aren't, and then and your doctors are within a WhatsApp app, so they talk to each other and they can say the good, bad, and the ugly, and not have that discussion from corporate. Why did say that? I think that's good, because then doctors feel like they're involved, they feel like trusted, and then they can say, call you up and say, hey, Laura, I don't like this. How do we do this? And then you can say, okay, let's see what we can do. And this is what we're doing. And you present it to the leadership and see what, or finance, and see what you guys can do about it. I think that's great within a smaller corporate optical. And I think that's how you guys really grow too, to have doctor partners. And I think you as the leader who have done it, seen it, and kind of rose up and you've grown professionally by yourself per se, because there isn't any resources out there within corporate optometry to say, hey, how do you lift up, how do you become the eye care director? Usually sometimes it's who do you know and what, but if you're seeing a patient every day, how do you really do that? And I think that's great to have you as a leader within Bailey Nelson to show other doctors, hey, you can do this. And then, it's where you want to be and you can grow. I think that's great just for the industry in general. I think that's amazing, because a lot of them are so displaced on stuff. And, I'll be controversial and say, you want me to do telemedicine? I'm happy to do it, but why don't you do it? You're free from 9 to 11, no conference calls. You do it from your house if you have to travel. So you show me that you can do it, then I'm happy to do it. So I think that's one of the great things, is that leadership there is really involved, sees what's going on at the trenches. So I really believe that this company will really explode in expansion. I mean, are there expansion, plans in the future, or are they just really just Canada and Australia and UK at this point?
We are expanding, rapidly in the countries we're in, but we do think that eventually we will get to the United States. So all my American friends there, keep an eye out. I'll be coming for you soon. But yeah, we want to expand everywhere. We're expanding to more provinces. This year we added Manitoba. We're looking seriously at Saskatchewan. I spend a little time in Nova Scotia. That might be coming in a couple of years as well. So if there's optometrists who want to live anywhere in Canada, you want to be there, we're probably going to build a store there. We're probably going to open another 15 stores in the next 12 months. We have 34 locations in Canada now. We plan to eventually get to at least 100. And as I said, probably expand into the US as well, because we know that we do something different and better, and we want to give those opportunities to optometrists and, of course, the patients and customers. But yeah, being part of the executive team, but also, seeing patients does give me a different perspective than a lot of people. And so I've been in this role about a year now, and I've already gotten retinal cameras into the stores. Even silly things like, I don't like the exam chair, and like they'll talk to the doctors. Yeah, oh no, hasn't been going up high enough. So just like simple things to make, being an optometrist, more comfortable and, enjoying it. We've had doctors who will bring, good ideas about, how to do things with patient flow. And I'm always open to hear new ideas and see what we can do to make changes. And, obviously we're looking at ways to, stay competitive in the market with all these new players coming into Canada as well.
Of course, but you're also approachable, right? You're approachable. Doctors can approach you, and then you give credit where credit's due. They'll say this, and you'll say, hey, this doctor at this location gave me this great idea, right? So that builds up the team, right? It's exactly. Not just getting feedback and passing them over. I've seen that. I've had it, and I think that's culture, right? That's real. It's not just saying we do it. It's not just getting an award from one of the big companies or magazines out there, which sometimes you can just buy, unfortunately. So, or just tell everybody to promote this. So I think it's really at the culture, grassroots, what you guys do. I think it does start with leadership. You are approachable. You've done it. And I really see Bailey Nelson expanding, really doing well over the next 10, 15 years within corporate optometry, because you guys do it differently, right? It's not all just, oh, Luxottica did this, let's copy them, let's do this. I mean, you do it differently. You think outside the box. You get people in. Different people bring different ideas, and it's not all the same ideas. I do talk to people in corporate and up top, and it's always the same idea. I'm like, but that's what they used to do 10 years ago at Luxottica or this company. That doesn't work anymore. The patients are different. The doctors are different. It's different. I mean, so it's that mentality. But I think that's great that you're at the leadership position. You're able to make the change, that you guys are expanding, growing. If doctors are interested or want more information, because you guys are expanding Canada, or even doctors all over the world that see this podcast, how can they contact you? And then you can introduce them to other eye care directors in UK and Australia and things like that.
Yeah, well, I'm also the eye care director for the UK, but
Okay.
the optometrist in my story about the guy who told Nick and Pete to add optometry, he is the eye care director for Australia and New Zealand. So
good
person to talk to as well. But you can contact me at laurie.lesser@baileynelson.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And I can always pass on that information if you're looking for work in Australia or New Zealand, or as I said, talk to me about UK and Canada. I was going to say, as we're expanding in Canada, obviously the doctors are independent contractors, but there's going to be leadership positions, within Canada, because obviously helping 34 doctors or helping 100 doctors might be a little different. So if there's someone who wants a sublease but has, thoughts of, doing something similar to becoming an eye care director at some point, I'm very happy to, start mentoring them and work towards that as well, because I think that it's a very interesting piece of optometry that, when I was in optometry school, I would never have thought this is where I would have wanted to end up. I kind of like the idea that you're in a small, dark room and you only talk to one person at a time. And at some point that changed. And there's a lot of interesting opportunities in optometry now, and especially for women.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much for what you're doing for women in optometry, really taking that role. You do have young kids, and you can do it. A lot of them say, I can't do it. Oh, they told me I can't have the job because my kids are young. So thank you so much for proving everybody wrong.
Well, thank you. My kids aren't young, but when I started this journey, they were.
Yeah.
But, thank you for having me, Maria. I always enjoy talking to you. And thanks.
Thanks.